Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all of our loyal subscribers every week tuning in and sharing this podcast. We know you're getting great information and introducing you to a lot of really interesting guests. Today is no different. So we're proud to have a great guest on with us today. But if you wanted to check out any of our past episodes, I encourage you to go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. You'll see a list of all of our past episodes and a synopsis of all of our guests, and figure out which episodes you want to check out and listen to. Share. You can see them on Rumble and YouTube. You can also listen to them on a wide range of different audio platforms. So check it out and see what works for you. As you know, this show was really born out of a book called The Go-Giver. Bob Burg wrote a great book, and it really speaks to how small businesses grow. They grow through networking. Networking is an important component, but the misconception of networking is that networking is all about getting referrals. The reality is networking is about giving referrals, and the more you give, the more you get. And this book really highlights that. And they have listed 5 laws of stratospheric success. The one I want to highlight today, which parallels with our guest very well, is the law of authenticity. And it's defined by the most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. The most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. And I think as you get to know our guest today, you're going to see how that really dovetails with his personality and how he runs his business. So I encourage you to enjoy the episode here, and allow me to introduce Brad Herda from Vision Forward Business Solutions. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you very much. I have a high threshold to get over with with what you're talking about with your guests and things. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be that good or not, but let's see what happens.
Oh, you're going to be awesome. Brad, you and I have known each other for quite a while, and I've always enjoyed our conversations. And I thought, well, why wouldn't our listeners want to hear our conversation too? So that's and frankly, we do that with a lot of my guests, and I often refer to our podcast as 2 dudes talking. We happen to hit the record button and let everyone hear it, but it's really just talking about our businesses and how we're growing our business and how it's serving others. So tell our listeners about Vision Forward Business Solutions.
So what I do is we support blue collar businesses to thrive in that multi-generational workforce. As you are aware, as a gentleman of about the same age, potentially slightly younger, older than I am, I'm not sure. Those Gen X and Boomers, we went through a lot to get our businesses and do the things that we needed to do. And we hired the same people and we enjoyed working with those individuals. And then all of a sudden, everybody got young at some point. And that leading and hiring and all those other things and all that noise of we can't find good people, we work with those owners and those businesses to do that, to understand that there are good people everywhere and that the employment problem is the biggest barrier potentially to your sale or exit of your business at some point. And if you don't solve that problem today, the sooner you solve it, the better off you're going to be able to exit or transition to your family members or wherever it's going to go. We take that holistic approach to that business. I'm always looking at how do you get out? The business owners, more or less, how do I survive today? But as we create new habits of how we survive each day, we build a better path towards the future to exit, sell, transition, whatever, or shut it down and maximize the cash out, whatever that looks like.
Right. Yeah. And recalling from our past conversations, it's never too early to start planning for that.
No, never. And it starts from day one. I just had these 2 kids, I'll call them 2 kids, 27 and 28 years old. They want to start a framing business together. And the first thing I told us, do you guys know how your divorce is going to happen? They're like, well, we never thought about that. I said, right now you're on this honeymoon phase and that's going to be great. But I'm going to suggest you figure out what it's going to cost each one of you to get out of your relationship. Because if you don't know what that is, it's going to be really simple for you to walk away and ruin the relationship instead of understanding that if it's going to cost you 40 grand to walk away, you're probably going to try to solve the problem instead of just not showing up to work the next day.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really important component to consider, because the honeymoon stage lasts for a while, but then life gets in the way sometimes,
Correct.
and
And not all
business changes.
partnerships are going to end, but knowing how to end them is really important. And when you're all happy and everybody's excited, you're better off to know now than it is when everybody's all full of emotion and anger and pissed off at each other.
Yeah, and yeah, map out the worst case scenario when you are getting along, when you do get along, and
Correct.
I totally agree with that. So you work with a wide range of businesses. You're based in Wisconsin, but
Correct.
you work with businesses outside of just Wisconsin. So,
Yep.
but your primary focus is manufacturing. Is
Manufacturing,
that right?
construction, trades, blue collar, right? Makers, creators, get your hands dirty, take things apart, put things back together again. Um, I, it's the backbone of our economy. It's the backbone of our
Of course.
opportunity, and and if we can't figure out how to bring in the younger generations, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alpha behind them, um, we're in trouble. I don't know about you, but I don't want to pay a $400 trip charge to some have somebody come over and jigger my toilet handle to stop a leak.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely, and I totally agree with you that the foundation of our economy and of our country is these small businesses, blue collar guys that roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty each and every day, and we need them. So
Right.
that market that needs to succeed and needs to keep growing, and we'd love to. We need to find a way to work with all these younger generations because they think about things differently. It's not necessarily
Very
bad;
much
it's
so.
just different, and
It's
when we
very
have to
different.
just embrace it. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
And COVID accelerated that difference, right? COVID created the opportunity for thinking differently. It created the opportunity for work from home. It created those opportunities for not having your accountant to be in your office all the time, even if you're a landscape company or a manufacturing firm or whatever that looks like. Um, I tell my clients and other people, millennials had it right. They may have just gone about it the wrong way to get the world to see what they're doing, but COVID forced that issue big time along the way. And we see all generations wanting to have that work life balance. Whether you're a 62-year-old grandfather that wants to go watch your grandkids soccer game, you might get to work at 4 a.m., but you want to leave at 1 o'clock to go to the game and see those things. Whereas 25 years ago, you never even thought about that.
right, right. Yeah, and the blending of those cultures, um, especially when there's different generations there, and blending those cultures together has got to have some rocky roads and some challenging points and some difficult conversations, and you facilitate that, right? You help those each side of it understands the other side of it so that it can work together and it's not all or nothing.
Right. Yeah. It comes down a lot to just setting expectations for both sides. Um, an example would be one of my remodeling clients. He has a general labor pool, right? Just as most landscapers have a general labor pool. You just come in, you have your laborers. He was getting really pissed off that one dude was showing up late all the time, but he was really good at what he was doing. So I'm like, why are you getting all angry? Well, because he's not showing up at time. Okay, so let's just make the general labor segmented out so that way he doesn't get paid as much as the other guys who show up on time. Let's just work on that and say, okay, general labor level 1, you show up to work 3 days on time and 15 minutes late the other 2 days. General labor 1, 2, if you want to make X level of dollars, you have to show up to work every day on time and put the ball in the employee's court instead of you being frustrated as the business owner to be all frustrated that he's not showing up at 7 a.m. at the job site. Okay, it's on them, not on you.
Right,
Why should you as the business owner take all that stress and burden for somebody else's behavior?
right. Give them the responsibility to own it, and then they can control whether they want to show up on time or not. Because if it's impacting their paycheck, maybe it's not a big deal.
Correct. right? Because they might shoot darts, they might play darts one day a week, and maybe they do some online gaming and some another night of the week. And those 2 days they don't want to get up early enough to get on time, so the 15 minutes they'd rather hit the snooze button. Okay, to me that's just mind blowing, right? To you that's probably mind blowing. To many of your listeners, it's probably mind blowing that but that's the world we're in today to deal with from a employment perspective. And when I hear manufacturers and tradesmen and feel so, oh, kids don't want to work, they just don't want to show up. That's a great generality, but if you set the expectations to begin with and know what those expectations are, it changes the dynamic of the relationship from day one.
Right. And failure to do that, failure to accept that, makes for a much more stressful situation for that business owner because they won't have their employee base to do the work they need to get done. And so that owner can't step away and go to his grandkids' soccer game. And so it is an adjustment, and they have to realize that you know if you adjust, then you can thrive and you can continue to grow your business.
Right, there's a you may have heard of the quick trip gas stations here in
Yep.
Wisconsin.
Yep.
uh One of the so they're very successful here. They've got, I don't know, they're up to 800 stores or something like that here in the Midwest. It's a ridiculous number. They pop up everywhere. um However, the corporate world, the corporate side of that, they have very scheduled shifts and very, this is the shifts you work, this is the process, this is what needs to do. So each store manager kind of has a framework. Well, there's one store in particular that I used to frequent very often when I was working for Bucyrus and Caterpillar. That they, I said, "Did you have any problems during COVID and different things?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Well, what did you do differently?" He's like, "I have like 75, 80 part-time employees and they figure it out. They all cover the shifts. They all work the same shift. They're not, it makes his life scheduling so much easier because he knows Sally is coming in from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. to do donuts or whatever. And Johnny's right after that, and so and so. And if they need to change their schedule, they're accountable to make sure that they find somebody to backfill it. It's not, well, do you want to work these days? And he's spending 3 weeks trying to put a schedule together to get everybody's their hours. No, here's what that looks like. His turnover rate is almost nothing because he's been able to create the flexibility to support the needs of his staff.
Right. Well, that's really important. That's awesome. That's a great solution, and takes the stress out of his life. One stress
Correct.
anyway. I'm sure he's got
Yeah.
plenty of others.
Yeah. He's got plenty of others. I mean, but it's still a matter of, he looked at his problem differently and he
Hmm.
solved it
Hmm.
through a different lens instead of, hey, the corporate world says the corporate mandate is here are the shifts, here's what you need to have, and this is what you should have for full-time employees and part-time employees. Like, no, if I have 3 part-time employees to cover one full-time equivalent, then I'm going to do that, because if I can get somebody to come in that wants to be here 3 hours a day, I'm going to let them be here 3 hours a day than trying to get somebody that doesn't want to be here for 8 hours, but they're willing to be here for 5 to cover those extra hours.
Right. Right. Great. And the reality is, if he's got however many stores he have, if he has 800 stores, if he does it the old-fashioned way, the way the textbooks tell you, he probably couldn't scale his business as rapidly.
Correct.
Having that flexibility and take and being now he can grow his business exponentially without that extra burden.
Yep. Now it comes with challenges. It's all those things, but he looked at it differently for his store,
Yeah.
and his turnover rate of his store is almost next to nothing compared to others.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. So you do a lot in the blue collar space with the trades. Any particular trades you have certain experiences with or successes with that you want to share some examples?
Um, there's not any particular trade I just enjoy working with. Well, I really enjoy working with family owned businesses that want to go through transition. So,
Hmm.
one of my favorite stories is early on when I started my business after leaving the corporate world. One of my former suppliers, they were a distribution company for Class C items, fasteners, hardware, miscellaneous tools, things like that. And it was a father-in-law who had recently bought out his partner and wanted to transition the business to his son-in-law and or the leadership team and or his son or whatever it was going to look like. So it was a very dynamic situation to work through, but essentially his leadership team, they were individual contributors for 15 years, 20 years, and there was no outside perspective. But in a very short period of time, we were able to support the son-in-law to become a leader, to understand that, the team that he was peers with are no longer peers, get
Mm-hmm.
the father-in-law to work part-time and be comfortable with it, set up the expectations of what he needed to report on, what he was comfortable about the team spending, different things like that, and making sure that the expectations were known from his side of it as to where he could gain trust in the leadership team so that he could be fishing more often or spending time with his grandkids more often or traveling with his wife more often than not, so he could step away. But building that transition plan was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding because that business is now since 2.5x since our last engagement, and they have plans to double that. Um, I went
Wow.
I went to one of their all employee meetings last year, and the framework that we put together back in 18 and 19, it's still being used. They're still using those same words. They're still using those same things, and the consistency that they've built in their structure has allowed that team to solidify without really adding any additional headcount, but they've grown through efficiency and effectiveness by creating that accountability that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. That's great success, and it's rewarding when you can take a step back 2 3 years and see that it's still working and they're still using the
Correct.
tools that you put in place.
It was very
And
humbling to go to that meeting and see the slide deck and see the things and watch the guy that I met for the first time when I met him in a presentation that I was doing. He's like, "Why am I here?" Because we kind
sure.
of backdoored him through his father-in-law to get him to this event that I was hosting, and to watch what happened and to see that happen is rewarding for me and also for him and his family.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tremendous. And it. I work with a lot of size and type of businesses with my GPS tracking. A lot of contractors, a lot of trades, a lot in the landscaping spaces, and I speak with the owner. I work with the owners a lot, and many of them um, have varying levels of challenges in that same space. Whether it be their kids are already in the business and they're trying to get
Mhm.
them and groom them up to that level, or if they or many of them, their kids are off doing completely different things and have want nothing to do with their business. And so the owner now is 70 years old and thinking, gee, how much more do I got here in the tank?
Or that son or daughter's out doing their own thing and dad hasn't created the opportunity for that child to come back into the business because they're still treating him as a child versus as a business partner or
Sure,
as a potential leader along the way, because they still see them as 9-year-old Johnny or Sally riding their bike doing stupid shit that they didn't. How could you possibly run my business when all the memories are from back when they were? um,
right.
and that's where those conversations need to take place, and that's where those um, things need to be talked about and put on the table, and structure put into it, and understanding put into it, and commitment on both sides. When a parent says, "Hey, we're going to transition this business to you," and then they decide not to, that's a real kick in the teeth to that family
Right,
member.
right.
um, and if you're not going to invest in them to have people to support that opportunity and and make that happen, it's likely not going to work without some support along the way,
Yeah,
because it just
yeah. No,
becomes
no doubt.
it becomes a parent child relationship, and we always our innate behavior as parents and children is to, well, that's dad, that's mom, that's son, that's daughter. It's not John, and Jim.
Yeah, business partners or a business relationship in some structure. You need to shift away from the family, take the family out of it, forget about the relation, and now let's take it from a business perspective. What's the right thing to do for the business?
Correct. And are they
Yeah,
qualified? And are they able to? And what are their strengths and weaknesses? And where do we have to figure out what those transitions look like?
right,
And um, all the other things that go with it, other than just, hey, I'm walking out and turning over the keys. Well, that's a bad plan too.
right, right. Yeah. I got bunch more questions for you, Brad, but we're going to take a
Yeah.
quick break. And before we do that, though, let's get your contact information. If somebody wants to reach out to you to explore how you might be able to help them, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Just make the phone call. 414-852-4224 is the easiest. Otherwise, you can always connect on the website at VFB, Vision Forward Business Solutions.com. VFBsolutions.com.
And the phone number again, one more time, 414.
414-852-4224.
Great. All right, perfect. I will put this information obviously in the show notes on the screen for our viewers. And certainly when you do reach out to Brad, let him know you heard about him here on I Got a Guy podcast. But let's take a quick break, come back, and I got a whole series of other questions for you. So a great conversation so far, Brad. Thank you. And be right back with you. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Specifically, Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions is known for three key principles. First, we are very knowledgeable in the field of GPS tracking and working diligently to learn more every day. Second, we are accessible. We do not hide behind a toll-free number, and we do not have any overseas call centers. We know our clients personally, and we're extremely committed to serving all of our clients as we'd want to be served. And third, we are responsive. We deliver our GPS units promptly and work diligently to install as quickly as possible. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions is consistently striving to exceed our clients' expectations. You can learn more about Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. We make GPS tracking simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. I am Michael Drellichars, host of I Got a Guy podcast, and we are here today talking with Brad Herda from Vision Forward Business Solutions, talking about helping businesses plan for the future and plan for whether it be sale of their business, transitioning their business, succession planning, and just getting the ducks in a row so that these businesses can continue to thrive and grow for decades to come, even after the owner retires and moves on and just it takes enjoyment enjoying their life. So Brad, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Mike.
So a couple things came to mind from our first segment here. I've heard business owners talk about wanting their children to run their business at some point, but have experiences outside of the family business. You know, they go to college, they get a degree. Maybe
Yep.
it's an MBA, or maybe it's just an economics degree, or whatever degree they get. But a lot of business owners encourage them to work in the real world, for example, if that's the right terminology to use,
Yep.
then come back to the business with some outside experience. Do you see that often?
I don't see it often, but I would highly recommend that it's at least a 5-year stint outside of the business, right? That son or daughter may be working there over summers or different things since they were in high
Right.
school and part-time positions, even during college or whatever. But I would strongly urge that once that education is over, whatever that education level is, that they go outside for 5 years and figure it out and then come back to create that exposure to something
Yeah.
different and to different ways of thinking and different opportunities to learn, understand different office dynamics, understand a different industry, because that's how we grow and bring ideas back in along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I think that is an important component. You know, working if you start by sweeping floors at age 12, and then you're in the business. You don't go to college, or maybe you do, you don't. But if you don't have that outside exposure, um, you miss a lot of experiences that could be valuable to the business.
So let's think about your business, Michael, for a minute,
Sure.
right? So think if you only did landscaping organizations, and it's all you focus on was landscaping organizations for your product and your
Right.
service. Think of all the things you would have missed out
Right.
on in order to make your products and services better for landscapers.
Right.
Think of all the things you would have missed out because you didn't get outside of your own industries. Now, when I was doing my outsourced manufacturing, I was blessed to walk through probably 200 different factories, 200 different family-owned businesses or shops and things like that to see how everybody kind of did something different. That made me better at my job and makes me better at my job today running my own business because I was able to see all of those things through different
Right.
lenses and get their perspectives and understand it. And too often, many in my role, they have their one thing and they put you in a box and say, this is the process, this is what we're going to do. I don't know what you can see, but okay, like, so I've got the book Traction sitting down there from Gino Wickman. It's a great process. It's a great book. It's a great system. That doesn't mean you need everything. That doesn't mean you need all of it. It might not fit. It might not be the right tools for your business. So finding the right tools to run your business and put that transition together and find the right things is really important because you don't need a 12-pound sledge to put in a picture on your wall. You can. Trust me, you can do
Right.
that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you
Right.
can.
Right. So I also see, a lot of bit like I have a number of plumbers, for example, that we serve. We provide GPS tracking for. The owner of the business started out, you know, twisting wrenches and digging ditches and
Correct.
plumbing business. Getting his hands dirty for many years before he decided to go off on his own and run his own plumbing firm. Um, do you recommend that if he has a son that's going to take over the business, that the son get in the trenches and dig the ditches and put the pipes in and get his hands dirty like the like he did, to learn that part of the business, learn the trade?
I'm going to say it depends, right? If that son or daughter is not mechanically aptitude enough to be successful at that role with the other laborers that are out there, it will create bigger problems down the road when they're in a leadership position because they're going to see Johnny or Jane as somebody who couldn't do the job. So now they're running the business. Why should I report to them?
Okay.
Now, if they can do the job and they're really great at it, fantastic. Getting them exposure to understand it and understanding where their strengths are, I think is more important than saying, hey, go do that and go work next to Bob over there for 7 months. And just if you're pissing off Bob every day, Johnny's not going to be respected by Bob or anybody else that Bob has influence
Right.
over.
But isn't it challenging to? I mean, if you don't understand the nuts and bolts of the business for and that to come in and be a leader in this business, I just I think there's a gap there that you're missing.
You need to understand it. That doesn't mean you know how to do it.
Okay. Fair.
If you know that putting it, if you know that if you're doing, just say you're doing rough plumbing in residential, and you know what you need to do, but you don't know how to do it, but you know what's required because I can see the specs, I can see the drawings, I can do all those other things. Cool, right? You know the standards, you know the limitations. You may not be able to do it or know all the right tools and all the things, but you need to at least understand it and be able to communicate it and set expectations. Um, not every great baseball manager was a great baseball player.
True. Yeah.
Tommy Lasorda was a great baseball manager. Was he a great baseball player?
Yeah.
Mediocre. He was okay.
Yeah. That's fair. That's a good analogy. And I often wondered how that transitions when that the children don't get into the business like because so many so many blue collar businesses start with the owner turning the wrenches, whether it be an auto mechanic, plumber,
Correct.
landscaper, drywaller, electrician, and um, and there's a lot of value gained from being in the field. And so you know the respect that now as you're running the business because you knew all the intricacies, um, that carries some value. But I wasn't sure how that works. So thanks for clarifying that.
So here's very interesting. So 2 weeks ago, I got invited by one of my networking partners to go out for an event, and we were out there, and he's talking about potentially him and one of his buddies, who is a doctor that's tired of all the healthcare rhetoric. They're talking about buying a plumbing and starting a plumbing and electrician firm, a doctor and a sales guy to start plumbing and electrical firm. Now, do they know anything about plumbing and electricity? Nope. Do they have the master licenses to do that? Nope. But can they find the people that have the master licenses to be able to be part of that business? Yep. And do they have the capital and backing to be able to do that and build an infrastructure and sell it and support it and run it as a bit? Yes, they do. Do they need to know how to put, black to brass and white to silver on an outlet? Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's fair. Yeah, it's yeah, okay. Interesting scenario, and I appreciate you clarifying that because
I mean,
that's important.
yeah, and it's important to know, and even for the younger bit, right? So you might have that 38-year-old gentleman that worked for the larger firm that says, I'm going to go do it for myself, right? That's how most people started to get in the business. They were younger. They worked for a large firm, didn't like what it was, whether it was union, non-union, whatever it was. They said, hey, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do my own thing. They go
I
do
can
their
do
own
it
thing.
better.
Cool. Now they start hiring people. Now they got to go out and start hiring people. So then if they're trying, if they're starting out, they're likely not going to be able to afford somebody like them at those same wages. So they got to hire younger to be able to build that knowledge and experience. Leveraging that younger person who might have the ability to go do the things in the field that could potentially ultimately be your office or salesperson versus your doer, and letting some of that go as a business owner is also very important to look at as well. You as the business owner could be your best salesperson, your best technician, and you most likely are. And if that's what you really enjoy doing, find a way to do more of what you enjoy doing versus all the things you don't want
Sure.
to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, you're right. And if that person is a family member, a son, a daughter, or what have you, and they're running the office, they can learn the business and be very successful at that. And
Correct.
and I guess focus on their strengths as opposed to cramming a square peg in a round hole. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm a big believer in let's maximize the strengths and find others around you to support the weaknesses that
Yeah.
you may have.
And so if a business owner came to you with this potential dilemma, you would actually help them go through the, kind of mapping out the profile, their profile, the profile with the other parties, and understanding, if they're trying to bring their children in, understanding what their profile is and what their strengths are, and you kind of help them map it all out so they can
Yeah,
plug it all together.
correct. Yeah, we'll have various, like I said, we have different tools for different situations. I'm a firm believer of meeting people where they're at. You talked about today being the authenticity, being part of it. Um, my process is not start at A, go to Z, and then walk away. That's not who I am. That's
Right.
not what I do. Um, the success of that family, that success of what's going on is really important to myself because it's another opportunity for a blue collar organization to support the next generation and give back and do all those things and have the opportunity to support the community along the way because like I said before earlier, those tradesmen, those blue collar businesses, that manufacturing facility, it's the backbone of your local community,
Absolutely.
right? Think when we think about the major employers in most communities, it's government, education, healthcare. Those are usually your top three. if I take those three things and I look at all their infrastructure and I look at all the things they consume and I look at all the bits and pieces that are required and land and opportunity and maintenance, who's going to support all of
Right.
that? And keeping that business alive, either somebody starting up that's just getting into business, like I talked about those framing guys earlier, they want to start their own framing company. Great. We sat down, I had a couple sodas with them, said, here you go, made some introductions to some lawyers, made some introductions to some insurance people. Start here to know what you're getting into. If you're halfway,
Right.
if you just started, if you're already 3 years in, 4 years in, and you're in growth mode and you're out to hire, let's make sure we put the right things in place so you can hire properly, so that when you move down the line, and if you're when you're killing it in your own industry and you're disrupting something and the big boy decides to come in and say, I want to buy you up, you're prepared for the
Sure.
opportunity for the to take the big boy's check, right? Instead of competing against them, let's build it so it's different, and then let them give you a big check to walk away if so
Right.
desire. And on the end of it, when you're ready to go forward, let's find the right things that make sense from a buyer's viewpoint, looking at your business through the buyer's lens versus your lens. Because at the end of the day, your baby's ugly, according to your buyer. So let's figure out how to make that baby
Right.
look better when we're talking about paper and financials and
Yeah.
things like that.
So a business owner comes to you and says, Brad, I'm 65 years old, or even if I'm 55 years old, I'm not sure what the future holds. What are my options? I mean, you map out all the various options for him, right? Maybe he hasn't decided if he
Yeah,
wants to
there's
bring his
there,
kids into it, or if he wants to sell it, or if he wants to run it and then just close it down. I mean, there's a lot of options there. You can kind of help him start from a standing stop, essentially.
at least have the conversation, because his lawyer or his accounting person or his insurance person or his financial advisor, they're looking at through
Hmm.
one lens, right? That financial advisor is looking at, well, let's just be honest, they're looking at it selfishly through their own lens to be able to maximize the dollars that they can control it in many cases. Unless he's got a really good financial advisor, um, there are many that aren't that good to take a holistic approach or bring other people in. Taking that wide angle of who are all the people that need part of that conversation to know what the best thing is for you to identify those risks is what we do. It's what we bring in. If the I don't have a guy in the financial planning world, or my guy has been with me since I was 18 years old and doesn't do transactions. Well, let's find a guy who does do tax and can protect that asset when you decide to walk away. Or we can find the right insurance person to make sure that we put some insurance policies in place on your family members that you sold the business to. So if something were to happen, everybody's covered and nobody loses the cash at the end of the
Hmm.
day. Um, we figure all those things out, put the plan together, find the right people, because I'm not the tech. I know a lot of things, but I'm not the expert on almost any of
Right.
it.
But you
Um,
facilitate.
but let's have the
Yeah,
right
you
conversation.
you
Correct.
facilitate the sharing of ideas and the building of a plan that is solid and is battle tested from the legal side, from the tax side, from the accounting side, so that
Right.
there's no surprises. Nobody likes surprise, especially at the end of the day. You don't want any surprises. Like, oh shoot, I should have thought of that.
Yeah. I've got the saying that, execution is where all great plans go to fail. So we can put the plan together, but ultimately I want to be by their side to go through the execution
Yeah,
portion of it.
that's great.
I've got a client right now who bought the business from his father-in-law. We hired an individual that likely is going to be the successor for him in the next 10 years, but we've already mapped out what those 10 years are going to look like,
Beautiful.
and what we needed in the first 2 to 3, what we need to do in 3 to 5, what we need, and what his job role may look like as we transition through that.
Yeah, that's tremendous. That's awesome. And there's so many variables, and I know myself as a small business owner, I get so buried in the day to day because my business is busy that
Mhm.
thinking bigger picture and taking a step back and look, well, what's going to look like in 10 years. I don't have the time for that. So that's where Or you
I'm going to ask your audience member. I'm going to ask you the same thing, Mike. I'm going to ask you and your audience to do the same thing. Can you find 2 to 3 hours a week that you can act as your own president and CEO and look at those things from a president and CEO versus the sales guy, the marketing guy, the technician, the maintenance guy? Could you find 3 hours a week to be the president of your company to look at those things and do that? 2 hours is, if you can do 2 hours a week to start, God
yeah.
bless.
You know what? If you schedule it, I think yes, I think it can be done. I think, but you have to formally schedule that into your day, into your week, I should say, and then carve out that time, and that's dedicated to thinking and vision planning, however you refer to it. But is it? I think that's
Yeah,
the answer.
it's that strategic thinking. It's getting above, thinking at 60,000 feet of, oh, you know what? I should really call the bank to talk about this. Okay, cool. Well, use that 2 hours to call the bank to talk about
Right.
that. Oh, I should really contact my insurance agent to talk about my workman's comp coverage because I don't know that I'm paying the right things or I'm
Mm-hmm.
classified correctly. Well, take that 2 hours to call your insurance agent, to make an appointment, to call them, to have that conversation about those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not the time to think about that. Think about it during the business day when you can get it done.
Correct.
And otherwise the weeks turn into months and years, and all of a sudden you forgot to do it for 3 years.
Correct. And next thing you know, oh, I have all this back thing. I got all these fines to take care
Right.
of. Ooh,
Yeah.
darn. I wish I would have known that
Right.
sooner.
Right. So that's good advice.
I get
So
one
carve out a couple hours a week just to kind of think the bigger picture.
Yeah, take care of those things that are really important, right? We've all seen we put the jar where we put the golf balls in the jar and then we fill it up with sand and then we fill it up with water. Take care of those golf balls. Those 2 to 3 hours a week should be spent trying to work on those golf ball items, not the sand, not the water, not all that other shit. Because when we take care of those golf balls, we have much more room for other
Right.
things.
Yeah, most definitely. That's great advice. Thank you for that. And um, so, any other successes or experiences you want to share with our audience to kind of give them any other ideas?
Knowing what your business is worth is really important,
Yeah.
right? Because you're going to go to a networking event, you're going to go someplace and go, oh, I got this guy that sold his business for 10x his revenue. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. So now you're thinking, oh, I'm going to sell my business for 10x because we're in the same business, but it's completely different. Every business is unique. It has its
Sure.
own unique DNA. Um, Opportunities, sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's not. But knowing what your business is worth today so that you can put that plan together and say, okay, I want to walk away with this is really important. And too often we don't spend the time, or it's too late and we'll get somebody that'll go to the broker. They'll go get their brokers, do the valuation. They've already signed with the broker and they get the number and they're like, oh, this isn't enough. And the emotional drain and the emotional letdown after all the excitement of, hey, I'm getting out, I'm getting out, I'm getting out, it's just a roller coaster ride you don't need. So making sure we get that number 3, 5, 7 years ahead is really, really, really important. Um, and we can provide that opportunity along the way. We can do that. We make it very, very easy and simple. We look at 3 years of financial data, a few questions, hour and a half. We can get something done compared. We use comps from the SBA closed loan data. So it's not just the accountant going, hey, we're going to swag it at this. We can do comps based on what the Small Business Administration has actually closed deals on over the last 10 to 15 years. It goes even further back than that. I've seen sale dates back to 2000.
Hmm.
Maybe not be relevant today, but I've seen
Sure.
it.
Sure.
So knowing what that is really, knowing what your business is worth is really
Yeah.
important.
Most definitely. Yeah. Um, yeah. And I would imagine that you could be off probably equally too high or too low if you don't go through the detailed analysis that you can provide, because as a business owner,
Right.
you know we're too close to the details to be able to step back and really evaluate from a holistic standpoint what it really is worth.
So I've been blessed to have many different sizes of clients in my portfolio over the years. And when a small business, when we think small business, a company that's doing $10 million in revenue, you're in the top 2% of revenue generating organizations in the US.
Hmm.
And that $10 million business could be that tool and die shop down the road that has 10 people in it. Oh, we're just a small business. No, you're in the top 2% of revenue generating companies in all the US. So some of it becomes mindset
Right.
of different things. And if you're doing 7, 8, $9 million a year, you're a big deal. And sometimes you need to think differently about that, because you might be, just printing cash hand over fist. And okay, cool. How do we replicate that? How do we make that happen? What is it worth today? And are you ready today? Probably not. But is it the right thing to do today? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. But it's being prepared for that.
Right.
A colleague of mine, his dad owned a business. um, 10 years ago, they could have got $7 million for it. Dad actually sold it for $500,000.
Hmm.
Now, they didn't need the money from the family perspective, because they were taking enough cash out of it along the way to do the things and make sure that they were financially okay. But that business went from $7 million to $500,000 in less than 10 years.
Hmm. Wow. Well, it's all about having the details in front of you, and and having an outside perspective like yours, an unbiased, experienced individual that you've got so much experience behind you. I really see so much value in that. Again, if you're too close to
Well, thank you for saying that, Mike. I
yeah,
appreciate
but
that.
if you're too close to the day to day and you're personally vested, I mean, it's going to be skewed, and so I think that's important.
I completely agree. And that's where that outside perspective, um, I can say with humility that larger organizations that I go into that have more than 5 employees, they come up to me and go, you know what, we really appreciate your perspective on these things, because we can now have meaningful conversations instead of fighting about it.
Right.
Right? We can define the roles, we can understand it, we can make things happen, and we don't need to worry about this dictatorship that potentially was created or worried about. And let's just get meaningful. And there's a process to it and there's steps, but we find the right places to start, find the biggest problem, like I said, find those golf balls to pull out of there, and then we'll worry about the water and sand
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Very, really important. So, talk to us real briefly about your podcast, because you have a podcast of your own. So, tell us about your
Yep.
podcast.
It's called Blue Collar BS Podcast. Yep. So my co-host, Steve Doyle, he's out in Michigan. I'm here in Wisconsin. We started the show because we were tired of the "we can't find good people" problem. We heard our clients talking about, we can't find good people, we can't find good people. He heard it when he was working at Meritor. I heard it when I was working at Bucyrus and Cat. And back in 2000, 2001, I watched the whole thing happen. 2001, all the welders, they get laid off, then they come back. Boomers left the industry and then they came back, but now they're exiting and they're not coming back anymore. So we've lost all the data. So we've lost time, we've lost
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. So we really focus on that multi-generational factor of it. And we bring on guests and we talk about ourselves to bring in solutions. BS also stands for business solutions into those businesses to do things on how do you hire Gen Z? How do you manage how does a millennial manage a boomer? How does a boomer manage a millennial, and vice versa, and different things, and the family business, and what people have done to be successful at recruiting and hiring and retention and leadership, and you name it, it goes all over the place. Similar to how you started your show saying, hey, it's just two guys talking. Originally Steve and I were just going to leave it as just BS. And it's like, Yeah, no, we need to put some more content behind there and more meat and potatoes. So, the BS is business solutions. It is truly BS at times. And then also, ironically, it's Brad and Steve. So we didn't see all of that. So by the miracle of whatever higher power you believe in, the BS really came out to be correct because we are trying to create that. I should say we are not trying. We are actually putting out content that is allowing business owners to do things differently, bring different ideas, bring that perspective into their business that maybe they didn't think about. And the best part is, all you got to do is listen.
Right.
Pick and choose what works for you. You might think we're full of shit. Okay, great. Oh, cool. What's the worst that happened? You got 20 minutes of your life that you just went through and said, let's try it or not try it. Okay, great. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, nothing ventured,
Right.
nothing gained. If you always do what you always done, you always get what you always had.
Very true. Very true. So that is Blue Collar BS Podcast. So you can find it on all the major
Yep.
platforms, and
Yep.
I've seen.
Yep, we just released episode 100 back in let's see, May 17th was our 100th episode, so we've been very blessed to have a lot of content put out there.
Congratulations. Well, great. So, to
Thank
our
you.
listeners, I know you're all avid podcast listeners. Encourage you to check out Brad's podcast as well. And for those of you that own your small business, or maybe you're part of a family business, I would love for you to encourage the ownership to take a look at what Brad has to offer and see if he'd be of any value. So, I'm sure from the conversation you've heard us here today, you can hear the experience that he has and how it really does help. So. I encourage you to do that. And Brad, share your phone number again with us and your website.
Phone number is 414-852-4224, and the website is vfbsolutions.com.
All right, VFB for Vision Forward Business Solutions.com.
Correct. I'm also all over LinkedIn, lots of different things going on out there as well. So if you want to connect on LinkedIn,
Yep.
cool, right? If you want to do that, because I don't want to make a phone call, that's fine too. No
Yeah,
problem.
great. Yeah, just so I'll connect.
It as most people, if it's an unknown number, I'm not gonna probably pick it up. However, leave a voicemail message. I guarantee I'll
Yeah,
get
no
back to you.
doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I struggle with that sometimes. Fortunately, my carrier will usually flags if it's a spam call, but I try to answer those when I get those random calls. I don't recognize the phone number because you never know when it's an urgent opportunity. But definitely
Correct.
a balance there. Well, cool. Any other thoughts you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up the show today?
Um, I just want to thank you, Mike, for what you're doing and how you're doing it from your purpose perspective. Right, that give to gain is really really important, and I can say from my perspective, my goal every year is to create at least 100 introductions to people for opportunity to make those things happen. And when you start connecting people for the right reasons, for the right purpose, other than just trying to pull money out of their
Right.
pockets, it's amazing what can happen. It's truly amazing what happens when you start making connections along the way. And I'm confident your show is creating those opportunities for you. And I know our show has created those opportunities to connect different guests for different reasons to go, hey, have you talked to so and so about this? And I didn't even know they did that. Okay, cool. Yes, go talk to
Yeah.
them. Make the introduction via email, and off you go. And next thing you know, there's a transaction or there's a problem that's been solved or there's an opportunity for somebody else to connect to somebody else along the
Yeah,
way.
it is. I find it very rewarding, and I really enjoy doing the show. And I'm glad to have you on as a guest, and so many other guests that we've had on. It's been really, really rewarding in my heart, my soul. And as we started out with the show, I did mention the law of authenticity, and it was defined as the most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. And as we can see, um, Brad is the epitome of that. So thank you for being so honest and frank and direct, and your experience really comes through. So that's awesome.
Thank you very much for providing me the opportunity. I
Yeah,
appreciate
good.
it.
So as we wrap up here, I'm going to just throw a quick little plug in for my day job, Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. We provide GPS tracking to small and medium sized businesses, a lot of contractors. we help them enhance their growth and profit through using GPS tracking technology. So if you happen to own some vehicles and you don't know where they're at throughout the day, love to have a conversation. We can help you with that knowledge and the data behind it. So you can reach out to us at 847-865-6008. It's 847-865-6008. Our website is precisefleettracking.com. So, all right. Well, Brad, again, thank you so much for being with us this week, and wish you all the best and continued success with Vision Forward Business Solutions.
Thank you, Mike. And for this last moment before you hit that button, for listeners, anybody that wants to that's thinking about tracking and vehicles and other things, before you sign with that big box carrier or other things, call Mike. Find out what you can get before you enter into an agreement that you will have to give up your first and second born to get out of when it doesn't work properly. Please take the time to call him before you do something different through your other solution providers. Please, please, please do that. You won't regret it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And we will look forward to staying in touch. And to our listeners, thank you again. And we'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.